Good morning, wonderful people. Anybody who is managing to join in with me on this fine Monday morning. As you can probably tell, I don't know if the lighting's blowing it out or if I'm just, or what. My face is rather red, so it's, oh, blowout. That's full blowout right there. Let's just turn that down. There we go, that's better. So, oh yeah, coming out of the weekend, did a really awesome little kayak trip, day trip on Sunday out on the ever so awesome Cave Run Lake nearby where I live. Man, that was great. It was so great. Got a little bit of sun, got a little bit of red, but it was worth it. Absolutely worth it. It's one of those funny things. I know a lot of folks who do stuff like I do, and many of us are just absolute workaholics. I am probably the worst about that. If Gina is back in the chat, she's known me long enough to know she's complained at me for years about that. So some time ago, I started trying to make sure I took at least one day a week to go do something. And, I love working out. I love, I actually give myself like at least an hour almost every day, 1 to 2 hours to get a good workout in, do martial arts stuff, weightlifting, things like that. And a whole day at least away to go just recharge. And, when the weather's great, man, there's nothing like popping a kayak out on the water and taking off, and it was beautiful. It was so beautiful out Sunday. So that being said, boy, am I glowing. I am glowing today. So let's see, anybody in the chat yet? Maybe not. Oh, Roman's there, Gina's there. Oh yeah, Gina. Gina's like, dude, sunscreen. Just saying. Yeah, there was sunscreen in use. There was sunscreen. I actually went out with a hoodie on. Just kept my arms completely covered. Had my legs and stuff covered. Because, like, you think you're going to get super hot, but when you're out on the water, you're going to get splashed a lot. So you actually stay pretty cool even when it's up into the mid 80s and higher. So there's no problem with staying covered up. So I was literally covered up all but just this little bit of my cheeks and my nose. Because the beard does a good job with that. And so I've got little raccoon eyes going on from sunglasses. So, but other than that, yeah, there's no burns at all, no nothing. So, yeah, and even this isn't really a burn. It's just a little on the red side, and it'll end up turning brown. That's the messed up thing too. Is if I go out in the sun for like, if I just go out in nothing but shorts, I'll get one burn, and then I will turn stupid brown. So it's kind of funny. All right. Gina, she's so funny in the chat. It's like, I'm so proud of you. Yeah, shut up. All right, so this morning, unlike my usual, where I typically am doing some kind of a concept or something to get warmed up with, I'm going to be instead jumping over into Substance Painter because deadlines and whatnot, and I just need to get a jump on this stuff this morning. So I kind of hate not getting my morning sketch in, but it is what it is. Sometimes you just got to jump on it. So let's go over to, we're going to start off in Maya, even though what I'm doing in Maya is really, you could do just about any halfway decent 3D modeling app. We're going to go into a UV editor here, and I'm just going to show you how I set up the UVs on this stuff so that it's UDIM compliant. Okay, so here, a lot of folks don't understand what UV space even really is. So for folks like I know sometimes folks watch stuff that I put out because of things in comics. They have no clue about the 3D side of stuff. So, you know, quick explanation is a 3D model exists in three-dimensional space, obviously. And it's all these vertices. So each vertex, like if I click on a vertex and I go over here, I can find somewhere in here for it. I'm going to show that I want it. Come on. Showing those relative to that, showing. That's not all. Now, anyway, each one of these vertices exists in, you know, at a point in three-dimensional space. So I don't keep the stuff up where I can see like where the exact position of a vertex is. There, it's giving me some stuff where the exact position of a vertex is, because I just don't need to know it. But any point that's out here in space, okay, it's got a point on X, Y, and Z. Well, that single point also exists in two-dimensional space over here, U and V. And it's the corollary between three-dimensional space and two-dimensional space that allows us to put image maps on things. So if I come over here, you can see a direct representation of that with this checker map put on the object. Here's what that map actually looks like. Now that map is a square image. And the way UDIM tiling works is basically that square image, even though I have it only set to show 10 spaces, that square image will tile out infinitely. And so if we wanted to put that square image across however many different models and be able to see the UVs for all those models if they're sitting next to each other, then we would have each one of those placed in its own UDIM space, which a UDIM space is just a fancy way of saying tile. So every time that texture tiles, everywhere it goes over one, we've moved the UVs for an object over one tile. We can move them over and we can move them up. Now, Substance does not like what's called negative UDIM, which is anything that's to the left or below the first UDIM tile. So this one right here, if I turn this off, you can see, you should be able to see. Maybe? I don't know. Turn it down. I don't think I have my numbering turned on, but because all I really need to see is my actual image tiling. But like right here, it tells you how many shells, how many overlapping, all this kind of stuff. 0 reverse UVs, all that kind of thing. Very handy. And right here, it gives me the origin of UDIM space. So this is tile number 1 right here. A lot of times, since I make a lot of stuff for Daz, it's going to sit on top of their Genesis figures. The Genesis figures are set up with UDIM tiling on them already, and their tiles run inside the first row right here. So I always move my stuff up to it's actually labeled as row 0. So their stuff sits in row 0. I always move mine up to row 1 and maybe subsequent rows, depending. Just depends on how I'm organizing a given project. So from there, I'm going to export the model with all that stuff. And we call this. So name it, save it out. Now, in theory, we should be able to just jump straight to substance. I say in theory because I'm probably going to pass back and forth between substance and ZBrush a little bit. So I already have this open in ZBrush, although ZBrush is already being silly with an autosave and trying to bog my morning down. So I'm also going to switch over to my general use screen. So that should be hearing. I'm kind of monitoring the stream. This way I don't have to keep going into my streaming software to switch my scenes to focused window. So there we have everything showing up in ZBrush. Here Mr. Toki talking about YouTube. So Toki Dog, he does not care. One of these days I have a GoPro that I'm going to absolutely mount under Toki's collar so we can get the Toki cam, because I want a Toki cam. He's the funniest dog. Fat, lazy, old mutt. I love him. Alright, so there you can see what we have inside ZBrush. I do believe there is a weird discrepancy that happens if you're going back and forth between ZBrush and Maya, where the GoZ implementation between those flips UVs vertically. So I have my UVs already flipped here inside ZBrush so that they would flip properly when going to Maya, and that would allow me to export, to edit all my UVs and move them into UDIM shells and then export it. So I need to get all of that back into ZBrush. So let's just GoZ all of that. When it comes over, probably that is the difference between ZBrush and Maya with that is utterly irritating. It really gets on my nerves. It's hard to keep track of. Very hard to keep track of. So let's look at this back in Maya again. I may just bail on it out of ZBrush for the moment and reload it over there. I think that's probably the best. Let's close ZBrush. Clear all my cache. Clear all my quick save. Restart ZBrush. And this stuff looks, the image looks flipped in here because it's coming out, the image is coming out of ZBrush first, so it's a little weird. I'm going to go through and double check all of this, because I don't need a bunch of garbage happening with it. I don't need it. Please, I'm going to do those, everything. So magical. Yeah. All those. One, two, six, Maya. Gonna be the same grid. No, this three brick. having to do this, so just drop. Actually, what is it? Do that, because they don't all need different materials in here right now. Alright, that is more what I was looking for. Pardon me. Now everything is readable. Technically it doesn't matter because the programs don't care, but for the human eyes who look at these things, you know, that it makes it a little less confusing to them, I guess. This guy right here, he is flippity doodad. So I'm going to flip it. Now it's oriented the correct way. Yeah, right here. It is just a wise decision to go through and double check all of this. Pardon me. Better. Anything else get funky? My audio was probably garbage there because I forgot to have my mic pulled over. Let's see. Anywhere else we need to go? Okay, I do think this is going to be good. So let's export all of this again. There we go. Okay. Now I'm going to try and do most of the texturing on this entirely in Substance. However, it may be worthwhile to open up Zbrush and maybe worthwhile to open up Zbrush and have that available for painting. People sometimes call them clown maps because they're brightly colored maps, but they're identifier maps. Pardon me, man. I am just schmeggy this morning. Okay, let's set all this. I want DirectX, UV tile workflow, convert UV tiles into individual. All that is set. Let's hit OK. And there we go. Now, if any of my UVs bled over into a neighboring UDIM tile, it would have thrown an error and not loaded the model. But they did not, because we're all professionals here. Oh, sorry. I gotta throw a mute button on that mic. I can clear my throat another time. Okay, so next up inside here, I'm gonna go through and name everything. Mm. Okay. So. I'm gonna call that tire skirt. It's a skirt literally made from tire treads. Sort of a skirt. It's supposed to be like hanging armor strips. Mm. Alright, now that all that is set up, this is a good time to go ahead and save because Substance crashes a lot. I hate to say that because I love the program. The fact that I still love the program with as much as it crashes is a testimony to how awesome the program is for what it does, but it crashes a lot. So, there we go. I'm thinking that we can get through most of this without needing any clown maps, without needing any ID maps. That would be super, super sweet. Super duper sweet. Gina says, let's see. I think Gina says something about use ZBrush to map and still can't really figure out how you set up the mapping like that. Well, that's because ZBrush can't set up the mapping like that. It literally can't. It can read it and it can hold it if the model already has it, but if you start messing with the mapping in ZBrush, like if you bring in a bunch of stuff that's UDIM tiled as one mesh, especially as one mesh, ZBrush will truncate it. The minute you go into UV Master, ZBrush will truncate it all down into the first UDIM tile and ruin it. So there's that. And if you have the stuff as separated UDIMs or separated objects into different subtools, then it'll hold the correct UDIM while you're working with it. But if you go and edit the UVs at all, it'll slam that back into the first UDIM tile every time. You'll be right back to having stacked UVs. So that is a flaw in ZBrush that they really need to fix. I see Sean is here. Cool. How you doing? Good morning. So I'm running from a full stream this morning, full screen stream, so I can pop back and forth between programs a little easier. But I try not to go over to my chat. Normally, I can pop over to the chat on the machine that I'm streaming from because I'm using a focused window method instead of just doing the entire display. But for the sake of popping between programs much more quickly, that's a little tougher, you know. And I'm doing a different method, so I'm keeping an eye on the chat off to the side on a different monitor. All right. So I like to typically start from whatever I see as being the bottommost layer of my clothing if I'm doing an outfit like this. So let's go down to the jacket. Take a look at this. All right, this is inspired by kind of a military or Coast Guard style life jacket, and then has some things added into it. What I'm working on is really kind of informed, um, some inspiration taken from the old movie Waterworld. That a lot of people hated it. It did poorly in the box office. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun movie. It was a nice spin on the post-apocalyptic thing. And I think if they did it again today, it would be stupidly good. All right. So let's go ahead and bake our mesh maps for everything. I'm going to do those at 4K and go down to my AO settings, and I'm going to set my max occluder distance to 0.01. And we're going to bake selected texture, which is going to be everything. We'll give that a minute to chug. Chug, 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 Substance. Do your thing. While it is doing that, I can keep the chat. And while we are waiting for that, I would take a moment to encourage you all to like, subscribe, share, do all that groovy business. Hit the little bell. And or anything else, actually sharing is a huge deal. I understand that the YouTube algorithm, like, when anybody shares something, YouTube just like, that's an immediate thing for YouTube to like latch onto something and promote it more, which is kind of cool. So if you share this and things like any of the different 3D art related groups that you may be in or whatever, stuff like that, very appreciated. If I could do that myself, it's considered spam, which I personally don't like doing either. I think that's it's rather hey Gina, it's big word time. It's rather gauche to do that. I don't like doing that. So Gina always picks on me because of my vocabulary. She's like, stop using the big words, Les. Which is just gonna make me do it more. And Gina asks, why are we baking blank maps? Well, they're actually not blank. They only look blank to the naked eye. Those maps all contain some bit of data. So like the ambient occlusion is going to have a little bit of shadow in it, though not much. The normal map is putting the normal data from that low res mesh into the map. All those like curvature, all that stuff that you can't really see what it's doing. Those all will feed different generators that can be used for texturing in Substance, and is really at the heart of using Substance. So I'm probably going to rebake the ambient occlusion because it's actually looking at it across all the models, and I need to change that so that it only looks at it for each individual model. So like right now you could see an ambient occlusion shadow coming on there from where there's the neck wrap that sits on top of this. So, and then when it comes back out, you can see it looks like there's shadows on it. Although those aren't, I don't know, I'd almost leave those, but I can't do it. So let's deselect all, go to ambient occlusion, come in here, change this from self occlusion to only same mesh name. Let's bake just the jacket and see what we get. Yeah, that fixed that right up. All right, and since we're doing that, I'm also going to alter that distance. Let's see, ambient occlusion, go to 0.03, so we get a little more shadow. You want even more than that. 0.1. That might be a lot. Hmm. Right now I'm just playing with settings, but I really want that ambient occlusion to flow. And right here you can click and see the results of your maps. So like see how it's gray around the edges of this? That's getting ambient occlusion in there. And then it's dark inside there. That's where there'd be, you know, ambient shadows inside those holes. So that's pretty cool. All right, that's not bad. I'd kind of like it to have a little more than that, but let's change that minimum distance to something a little larger and see what that does. Not much. I guess we'll stick with that. That's fine. So let's do that to all the texture sets. Gina's like, that's not a big, because I said gauche a minute ago. She's like, that's not a big word. And I was picking on her. I was like, yeah, but I know if you're here, you know, it's like it might not be one that you pick up real quick. So yeah, I like to give you some crap. Gina and I have been friends for like, good God, going on 20 years. So anyone who doesn't know, like, she's worked with me off and on for a long, long time, and we pick on each other like freaking siblings. Oh, fun stuff. Fun stuff. All right, the chat's pretty amusing this morning. All right, so let's look at everything on. It said show all. Yeah, see here we've got some stuff that's going to need to be individually baked. Oh, kind of like a lot of my friends. I think most of my friends are individually baked these days. uh. Oh. That fix that? Yep, that fix that right up. Let's apply to all then. And bake all those maps one more time. Chug, chug, chug. Bake them maps. Don says, I'm still mastering baking textures. We'll be doing some this week for project. Man, I wonder if I could just pull this up on my phone and see the chat there. That way I don't have to look off screen so stinking much. Oh, never mind, my phone is almost dead because I hate phones. Hate them with a bloody passion. There's nothing more irritating to me than cell phones, smartphones, all this crap. Hate it. Hate it. I like my computer, and then I walk away from the computer. Phones are garbage. I'll have a grandpa moment here. Everybody can just step back. Accept it. Okay, there we go. Now we've got some nice AO showing up. So, going back to what Gina was saying earlier, she's like, why are you baking, you know, maps with nothing in them? Well, there's actually stuff in them. So, like if we go cycling through, of course, base, color, and height don't have anything in them because we haven't painted anything there yet. Roughness doesn't either, but when we look at like the normal, it's going to look like a flat middle blue. Because there's no variance going on in the mesh to create anything there, but that lets that lets the program know what's going on with the normals. So if I use a generator, then it knows how to vary the color of that map. So let's see, normal opacity, emissive, normal height mesh. Okay, cool. Let's go back to regular material view now. Save what we got. I save often in Substance because, did I mention it crashes? You know, baked is the only way to be. Not if you want to be productive. I don't care if anybody does that. I personally don't. Waiting for it to save. Waiting for it to save. Maybe later today, or I don't know, sometime the next day or two, I'll pop up a video on my my latest obsession. I'm now, the second 3D printer for the studio came in over the weekend, and I've been testing it out, and holy crap, is it so nice. I got a Frozen PHROZEN Frozen Mighty 4K. It's a larger printer than my Anycubic Photon, and it works. Like, I like the Anycubic Photon, but I'm probably not going to buy any other Anycubic products for a while, if ever. If this one from Frozen stays as solid as it has proven over the weekend, because that thing, there's so much I could go on with about it. It's so cool. Yeah, it's pretty awesome, and the stuff that I've been churning out of that printer is just crazy. So, oh, so many things to do, so much stuff to put into place. All right, now let's go back and look at this jacket. I'm gonna zoom in on this baby, and we'll start off with just some generalisms on my materials. So let's go grab some. Do I want leather on this? Really should be more of a canvas. So let's go to my fabrics, and then in there, I'll type in canvas. And if you're wondering why I have a huge list of stuff over here, and if you've left Substance at its default, you might not, it's because I've created all kinds of custom shelves over here. Really, they're custom searches. I call them shelves out of habit from Maya, but they're custom searches that are saved to make it much more quickly, much quicker to go find things that I need. So let's make this thumbnail larger. And let's drag this cotton canvas over in here. Possibly pull something worthwhile from that. It has opacity on, so let's turn that garbage off. I'm going to turn the height map on, but then go down and make it much more slight. I'm also thinking about doing triplanar mapping on this, so that we get nice and even spread over everything a little more easily than with the straight UV shells. Okay, so we've got a canvas to start with, and let's color that a little bit. Go to kind of a drab green. Kind of pseudo military looking with that. Actually, let's go full military with some stuff here too. We've got some camouflage that I can toss in here that could be interesting on top of this. So go to that. Does that have a little texture in it already too? Oh, cool. Nice. Nice. Oh, that's interesting. Kind of cool. It has these different things in here like that. Different little color schemes for different environments and whatnot. All right. I like that one better. And I'm going to dial that luminosity down so we get something a little darker out of it. And let's go ahead and start adding some masking. And this masking is super important. Hit F4 and come in here so that I can just work direct on this, on the UVs. So there we can flood that, because that's the only part that I want that canvas on. Then let's copy that. Where is it? Where is it at? There's some copy mask there. And paste mask. Okay. And then let's take our base color on this guy and set it to, let's set it to overlay. And then maybe we'll bump the luminosity back up a little bit. Let it blend with that underlying color. That looks much better. That's much more what I think I want. Really like that. Okay. And I'm gonna take, I think I'm gonna try taking the camo off of the trim edges here. And so there's a couple different ways we could do that. We could come in and just paint away the masking in here. Which, let me change that. We could paint it in, paint it out like that. That's probably going to be the best way to do it, though I'm tempted to try using a generator to do it. At least we can come in and do it by polygons, which can make it very, very clean. Now, I do think that's going to be my best route. So I am going to do that with a paint modifier, though, instead of painting straight into the base masking. So let's add a paint layer. Yeah, I'm going to put a pin in that. I'll show you the other method that we could try, is using a generator and then going down to UV border. Then let's crank up the contrast on that. That might actually get us part of the way there. It seems to, yeah, see, it's calculating from the border edge, which does give a smooth a smooth shape, but it doesn't follow exactly where I have that stuff modeled, so it's not going to work out. A lot of times the UV border generator can be really useful, but in this case it's going to be more of a problem than it's worth. So just come on in here. And this can seem a little tedious, but it's way better than painting it by hand out in the viewport. Pardon me. Right. See Mr. Brent showing up in the chat. Welcome to another fine Monday morning. This is some stuff he's probably going to dig. I know he's been wanting to learn more about using Substance for a while. Whew. I got the yawns starting. I might actually mute my audio in a minute and go get some more coffee. Okay. Excuse me. It's really easy to zone out on this kind of stuff. Okay, so there we've got that outer area corded off. Now let's come in and do that inside. Stuff like this it just goes to why I'm such a stickler for good UVs. Good, clean UVs. Enough separation that you can get in there and reach everything. Pardon me. Yeah, really hard to keep on it sometimes. Mondays are the worst, you know. I think I'm going too far with that one. Yeah, I'm going one loop too far. I do wish Substance would kind of get with the program and everybody else and start having some things that are based on edge loops and you know, some topographical or topological sorts of selection and paint options. All right, there we go. So now that we have that mask off, turn that on underneath. You can see there we get the pure green fabric through there, but then we get the camo on everything else. And I might even mask off those panels. Might be an interesting option. I don't know. It's a hard call. That's a really hard call because I don't want to completely kill the camo vibe. Okay. Now let's grab some mesh. Let's do this polyester mesh. There, I'm gonna make it super tiny. Then colors. There we go. I'll turn off the opacity and on some height. Come in and just reduce that a bit. Then we're going to put a mask on there. Pop back over inside here into our UVs. And let's see if that should work. You can just flood the entire object. Cool. Right, now let's grab some plastic. Maybe a kind of a black, sort of matte looking plastic like this. And go ahead and change this. Throw a black mask on it. And we'll flood these. There's that. All right. Now let's grab some metal. And let's see what we get if we type in rust. Okay. Chrome plate rusty, iron damaged, iron rusty. Kind of like this brushed metal rusted. Let's go with this one. And again, let's flood each of these. There we go. That's going to get that on those rings. Might change the, tempted to change the clips on the straps just so that all goes together. I don't know. And let's go ahead and drop that in on those shoulder plates. That really has kind of the vibe I'm looking for. Just for the sake of experimentation. Yeah, I do like that. I like the way that brings it together. Okay. And once we have all that, let's tuck all that in a folder. Call that base. Now I can start adding some details, playing around with some weathering, and I do like doing that. So let's see where we're gonna go with this. Where we're gonna go? Let's throw material on here. Let's go to our smart masks. And let's see if they have anything here that says wet. Nope. Not at all surprised. Let's try dirt splashes and see what kind of pattern that ends up with. Nah, I don't like it. That's kind of interesting. That's more what I'm wanting. So what a smart mask is when you've created a combination of things with different settings inside a mask, you can save that as a smart mask. So if you use those settings over and over, you can always just drag them back in really easily. So let's come in here and change that color. I think this particular layer is just going to be to affect the color, and give some delineation. Play with some of these settings. Let's turn on height and make that stuff dig in a little bit. That's pretty cool. Do like that. So now we're starting to get some really nice breakup around these major shapes. And that grunge right there is adding. It's pretty interesting patterning over top of all that. Like that. So there's some interesting bits of detail added in there, some dirt and grime. Let's see. I want to add some painted elements, kind of painted sculptural looking elements. And I have two different ways I like doing that. One, I could just put a paint layer in here and use whatever brush I want, and just turn color off for the brush, turn off everything except like height and normal. I do that sometimes when I just want to hit something really fast, kind of run and gun it. But if I want to be able to come back and edit it later, then I prefer to do a new fill layer and turn off everything except height and normal. Let's say we want to do this with something that cuts in. Okay, so from here, let's add a black mask. And let's see if these things are in place. Do a black mask. And if we come in and paint into that mask, here we go. There's what I was looking for. You right click on that viewport, you can get into these settings. Let's change the hardness on that. Okay. So now, if I paint a stroke on here, it's going to look like it's carving into the surface. And the reason it's doing that is because the fill material that I placed on here is set up to do that. So I have a negative height in my fill material, but then I have everything masked off, and I throw a paint layer in there, and I can paint into the paint layer, and it's going to appear as though it's carving. Let's turn on my symmetry. And I'm just going to paint a little bit. All right, I like that. And I'm going to paint through these rings after I kind of keep that back. Okay, then after I have painted through the rings, I can come back in with my what is that called? Oh, Polygon Fill. And should be able to get rid of, yeah, get rid of that line that I added that went into some of that. Of course, now this is a problem with the Polygon Fill and painting, is that or Polygon Fill and Symmetry. And oh, the symmetry is off on this. It's reading symmetry automatically because it has the big anchor thing is set in at the side. So actually, that's a first problem right there before I even paint any of that. So let's just back all that stuff up. Didn't even notice that. Okay, so let's come in here and adjust where my center is. So 0.04 looks about correct, but I can see that it's not exact. That annoys me. Let's see, 0.041 maybe? No, that's too far. 0.039. 0.039. Close. What just happened? Oh, I accidentally turned on masking. That's annoying. I rarely use masking, so I gotta remember how to turn it off. Rarely. I don't like the way masking works in here, like, at all. That's deeply annoying. My finger slipped typing the numbers in, and I hit something for masking. There we go. Oh, come back here. That's funny. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, don't ever hit the point key on your number pad, because it apparently is also a delete. I've actually never done that. All these years, I've never ran into that. All right, masking must be per brush. That is such garbage. Oh my god, I hate that. I hate that. I hate that. I hate that. All right, where was it? All right. There we go. Back to a regular brush. Durr. That was annoying. Annoying. Yeah, it's projection. That's why. I was thinking in terms of masking, because it is a big mask that comes up, but it's called projection. Yeah, I love Substance, but there's some little stuff in it that I'm like, guys, that's wacky. What are you doing? All right, so how's our center line looking? Okay, pretty good. So now we should get nice symmetrical drawn lines. Good. And if you tap and then hold shift, you get a straight line. Of course, that straight line is also screen specific. So it won't give you the straight line on the model. So like if I tap right here and draw, great, I got a straight line right from here to here. But if I tap here and then I rotate the model, it's like, you could do that. See how the origin spot of that line is based on the screen and not the model. I find that a little irritating. I think you should be able to choose whether you want to be in screen space or local space. But whatevs, you know, no biggie. Now let's see if that worked. Okay, yeah, it still killed it because of the object fill and because of the horrible thing that happens with symmetry sometimes. So. There we go. That gives us those lines on the plates that I wanted. I'm just going to add a few more. Let's make those nice and straight. Click, and click. And let's click and now, let's see. We call this height details. Okay. And let's look at some smart materials. I don't use these very often because I think they're bloated. They tend to be very bloated and kind of bog things down. But in this case, I'm really kind of tempted. Okay, cool. That's what I thought. Figured I had one of these saved that was called dirt. I'm gonna give that a hard maybe. There we go. If we adjust the height, we can make it feel more like mud and dirt on the surface. And then I think the last thing I'm going to do to this is add what I call an AO kicker. It's going to be a fill layer with everything turned off except the color. Color is going to be set to black. Set our blend mode to multiply. Then we're going to add a black mask to that. And a generator inside that mask. And that generator is going to look at our ambient occlusion. We'll invert that. So now as we dial this in, we can start to control some nice baked in sort of shading around those ambient occlusion areas. So that kind of goes back to the question early on in the chat about why are you baking those empty maps and how they're not actually empty. See, if that map wasn't there, it wouldn't have an ambient occlusion to look at to be able to do that. So now let's turn the opacity down on that a little bit. All right, and that gets pretty good texture in place for this particular garment. I do think, you know what? I'm gonna add one more thing before I call it a day. Let's find some net. I'm betting I've got some netting somewhere. I know I do. I know I do. Let's hone this search down just a little bit. Okay, net. Boy, you wouldn't think that would be so, would be such a frequently used combination of letters. Huh. That's interesting. Alright, let's just drag this over so we can look at a lot more at once. There's the one I want. I knew the one I wanted was a fishnet. Okay. Let's drag that up here. I'm going to keep UVs turned on that. Then let's copy. Want to copy the layer or the masking from here. Wrong one. No. Cotton canvas. This one's on. This one's on. So let's copy that mask, paste it into here. Then we're going to invert that mask. That's going to put that along those areas. Now we're going to come into the paint and just paint out everything except that trim stuff. And so now we can just flood all of that. There we go. Now we've got that netting in there. Let's play with the scaling on that a little bit. This colored dirty, maybe. I'm not really feeling it on the net there. I'll probably do something different with that. Anyway, all right, that's gonna bring it to a close for this morning. Yeah, instead of doing a normal sketch, I decided to jump in and show you guys some stuff in Substance, doing some texturing. And let's take a little spin around this guy. So I am very happy with that. I think that gets the job done for my needs. All right. So, if y'all got any questions or comments or anything like that, feel free to pop them off in the chat real quick, or you can leave them in the comments below for later. So, checking up on that stuff from time to time, and you know, hopefully be able to help folks out there. Yep, just glancing over at the chat again. So, anything. All right. Yep. Oh, good deal. So, thanks to Roman and Gina. Let's see, we got Roman, Gina, Sean, and Brent hanging out this morning. So, thanks, you guys. Appreciate it. As always, remember, like, share, subscribe, hit the bell, all that groovy stuff. And remember, if you're watching this, remember, go to Sixus1.com, sign up the mailing list, and keep up with all the crazy groovy stuff we got going on. So until next time, tomorrow morning, I'm out.